Magandang Biyernes po sa inyo, aking mga kausapan. Please like, share, subscribe, and press the ting-ting bell button para ma-notify kayo sa aking susunod na vlog. Ito ang iyong abang lingkod, Usapang Batas with Attorney I. Bawal ba ang bastos? Alam nyo ba, mga kausapan, na may batas na laban sa mga bastos? Para sa inyong kaalaman, noong April 17, 2019, ay naisabatas na ang The Safe Spaces Act o mas sikat na sa tawag na Bawal Bastos Law. Batay sa kasarian o gender-based sexual harassment ay maranasan kahit saan, sa papublikong lugar, opisina at mga eskwelahan. At dahil sa ebolusyon ng teknolohiya at pagkakaroon ng internet, ang sexual harassment ay naging madalas kahit sa online space.
Ito ang Republic Act number 11313, an act defining gender-based sexual harassment in streets, public spaces, online, workplaces, educational or training institutions, providing protective measures and prescribing penalties therefore, otherwise known as the Safe Spaces Act. Ang bagong batas na ito ay mas pinalawak ang sakop sa gender-based sexual harassment kahit saan man lugar o rin space. Kasama na dito ang online na lugar o space. Ano ba ang layunin at hangarin ng Safe Spaces Act? Bago ang lahat, ano muna ang safe space? Ang safe space refers to public spaces, ang kaligtasan sa mga pampublikong lugar base sa kasarian. Public space ay ang kakalsadahan, eskinita, pampublikong parke, eskwelahan, gusali, malls, bars, restaurants, transportation terminals, public markets, lugar na ginagamit na evacuation centers, government offices, public utility vehicles as well as private vehicles covered by app-based transport network services and other recreational spaces such as, but not limited to, cinema halls, theaters, and spas. Dati nang may batas para sa sexual harassment, ang RA 7877, Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, na mayroong limitadong saklaw na sakop lamang ang sexual harassment na nangyari sa trabaho, edukasyon o training environment at nakatuon ito sa mga nakasaad na tao tulad ng mga boss, nakakataas na may moral ascendancy. Kaya naisabatas ang Republic Act 11313 para palawakin at masigurado ang individual sense of personal space and public safety. Maraming nangyayaring sexual harassment sa pampubliko lugar at sa online. Yun ay disakop ng dating batas, Republic Act 7877. Ngayon, dahil sa pinalawak na batas, ang Bastos Law ay pinoproteksyonan ang lahat ng tao, anuman ang kasarian sa online sexual harassment tulad sa social media, electronic mail. Yan ay nakasaad sa Article 2 ng Republic Act 11313, Gender-Based Online Sexual Harassment. With the aim of ensuring an individual's sense of personal space and public safety, the Safe Space Act addresses gender-based sexual harassment in public areas such as streets, privately owned places, open to the public, and public utility. Attorney I, ano ang GBSH? Gender-based sexual harassment. Nakasaad sa Republic Act number 11313 kung ano ang gender-based sexual harassment. Yan ay set of socially ascribed characteristics, norms, rules, attitudes, values, and expectations identifying the social behavior of men and women as well as the relations between them. Gender identity would be the personal sense of identity characterized along the spectrum of the feminine and masculine presenting conventions regardless of their sexuality. Gender-based sexual harassment constitutes any acts that are committed through any unwarranted, unwanted, and uninvited sexual actions or remarks against any person of any gender identity, regardless of the motive for committing such action or remarks. Medyo didilim ang ating video kasi papasok tayo sa lungig. Gender-based sexual harassment sa kakalsadahan at pampublikong lugar, papano at ano ito? Ito ay pagmumura, pagsipol, pagsigaw, komento ng sexual o kalaswaan, pagtingin o pagtitig na may halong landi o kalaswaan, tumingin na nangihimasok, panunuya, hindi kanais-nais na imbitasyon, galit o pag-ayaw sa mga babae o misogynistic, transphobia o negatibong pag-uugali laban sa mga transgender, homophobic o takot, galit hindi komportable o kawala ng tiwala sa mga tomboy, sexist slurs o sex discrimination, persistent unwanted comments on one's appearance, ang pamimilit na makuha ang personal details ng isang tao tulad ng pangalan, contact, and social media details or destination. The use of words, gestures, or actions that ridicule on the basis of sex, gender, or sexual orientation, identity, and or expression including sexist, homophobic, and transphobic statements and slurs, the persistent telling of sexual jokes, use of sexual names, comments and demands, and any statement that has made an invasion on a person's personal space or threatens the person's sense of personal safety. Yan ang mga bawal na gawain sa Bastos Law. Attorney I, mayroon bang kaparusahan ang paglabag sa Bastos Law? Ang sagot ay mayroon, mga kausapan. First offense, fine of 1,000 pesos and community service of 12 hours inclusive of attendance to a gender sensitivity seminar. Second offense, arresto minor, 6 to 10 days or a fine of 3,000 pesos. Third offense, arresto mayor, 11 to 30 days or a fine of 10,000 pesos. Attorney I, sabi mo kanina, may gender-based sexual harassment sa kakalsadahan at pampublikong lugar, streets at public spaces. Ano kaya mga yon? Eto sila, mga kausapan. Paggawa ng nakakasakit na kilos o body gestures sa ibang tao, pagpapakita ng ari o private parts for sexual gratification of the perpetrator with the effect of demeaning, harassing, threatening, or intimidating the offended party, including flashing of private parts, public masturbation, grouping, and similar lewd sexual actions. Meron bang penalty dito, Attorney I? Meron, mga kausapan. Eto na naman. First offense, fine of 10,000 pesos and community service of 12 hours inclusive of attendance to a gender sensitivity seminar. Second offense, arresto minor, 11 to 30 days or a fine of 15,000 pesos. Then, third offense, arresto mayor, 1 month and 1 day to 6 months and a fine of 20,000 pesos. Ano naman ang gender-based sexual harassment in streets and public spaces? Stalking, any of the acts mentioned in paragraph 11A and B when accompanied by touching, pinching, or brushing against the body of the offended person. Any touching, pinching, or brushing against the genitalia, face, arms, anus, groin, breast, inner thighs, buttocks, or any part of the victim's body, even when not accompanied by acts mentioned in paragraph 11A and B. Ano naman ang kaparusahan, Attorney I? First offense, 11 to 30 days or a fine of 30,000 pesos, provided that it includes attendance in a gender sensitivity seminar. Second offense, arresto minor, 1 month and 1 day or a fine of 50,000 pesos. Third offense, arresto mayor in its maximum period or a fine of 100,000 pesos. Ito ang bago mga kausapan, ang gender-based online sexual harassment. Ang Safe Spaces Act ay napabuting batas kaysa dati dahil dito ay sinagot ang mga dating problema dulot ng teknolohiya at social media. One provision of RA number 11313 covers in particular is the stringent online regulations and giving respect to those who are silent victims of the following. 1. Physical, psychological, and emotional threats. Unwanted sexual, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, and sexist remarks and comments online, whether on public posts or through private messages. Invasion of the victim's privacy through cyberstalking and incessant messaging. Recording or sharing any of the victim's photos, videos, or information without permission. Impersonating victims' identities, posting lies about victims to harm their reputation, and filing false abuse reports to online platforms to silence victims. Sa Pilipinas, ang mga Pilipino na gumagamit ng internet ay 67.74 million noong 2017 at lumaki ito sa 72.45 million noong 2018. Noong 2020 ay may 79.66 million Filipino na gumagamit na nitala. Yang numerong yan ay kalahati na sa populasyon ng Pilipinas. Ang forecast sa year 2026 ay 91.57 million ang gagamit sa internet na Pilipino. So ang batas na ito ay talagang napapanahon dahil ang mga tao sa online space tulad ng public space ay maaring makaranas ng sexual harassment sa dami ng gumagamit ng internet. Ang RA 11313 ay tumutukoy sa online acts targeted at a particular person. These acts cause or are likely to cause mental or emotional psychological distress and fear of personal safety, aside from unwanted sexual remarks, comments, and threats, uploading or sharing of one's photos without consent, video and audio recordings, cyberstalking, and online identity theft are considered gender-based online sexual harassment. Ano ang penalties for perpetrators of online gender-based sexual harassment, Attorney I? The penalty of prison correctional in its medium period, which is imprisonment of 6 months and 1 day to 2 years and 4 months, or a fine of not less than 100,000 pesos but at more than 500,000 pesos, or both at the discretion of the court, shall be imposed upon any person found guilty of any gender-based online sexual harassment. Prison correctional in its medium period, or a fine of not less than 100,000 pesos but at more than 500,000 pesos, or both at the discretion of the court. Practical tips lang mga kausapan sa pag-report ng kaso ng online gender-based sexual harassment. kailangan ay lukumin ang digital evidence of the act when filing the online report at tandaan ang Uniform Resource Locator URL o yung web address of the website or social media account of the perpetrator. Take screenshots and make a printout of the content being complained of. To do this, open a browser like Google, Chrome or Mozilla Firefox on a laptop or desktop computer and open the pertinent account or page and print the web page. When contacting the authorities, it is best to directly contact the Philippine National Police Anti-Cybercrime Group. Ano naman ang qualified gender-based sexual harassment? Ito ay mas mataas na kaparusahan mga kausapan dahil ang penalty ay next higher in degree at ito ay mangyayari sa workplace o educational institution o training institution. Article 4 ng batas ay nagsasabi na gender-based sexual harassment in the workplace. Section 16, ang krimen na base sa kasarian o sexual harassment sa trabaho o pinagtatrabuhan ay kasama ang mga sumusunod. A. An act or series of acts involving any unwelcome sexual advances, request or demand for sexual favors, or any act of sexual nature, whether done verbally, physically, or through the use of technology such as text messaging or electronic mail or through any other forms of information and communication systems that has or could have a detrimental effect on the conditions of an individual's employment or education, job, performance, or opportunities. O mga kausapan, bawal ang bastos sa trabaho, kaya iwasan niyo magbiro tungkol sa sex o humingi ng pabor para makatalik ang isang babaeng kasamahan sa trabaho. Lalo na pagpaulit-ulit, yan ay sexual harassment. Pangalawa, a conduct of sexual nature and other conduct based on sex affecting the dignity of a person, which is unwelcome, unreasonable, and offensive to the recipient, whether done verbally, physically, or through the use of technology such as text messaging or electronic mail or through any other forms of information and communication systems. Dito naman ay ang sexual harassment ay pwedeng sinasabi or sa text message or electronic mail at iba pa. Huwag niyong sabihin na porke text lang ay di kalubag ng Bastos Law. C. A conduct that is unwelcome and pervasive and creates an intimidating, hostile, or humiliating environment for the recipient, provided that the crime of gender-based sexual harassment may also be committed between peers and those committed to a superior officer by a subordinate, or to a teacher by a student, or to a trainer by a trainee. Ito naman ay ayaw mo ang ginagawa ng tao at ito ay makaka-intimidate na. Di lang boss ang pwedeng gumawa nito, maaring tauhan laban sa boss, teacher laban sa estudyante, o baliktarin natin, estudyante laban sa teacher at iba pa. At ang panghuli ay information and communication system refers to a system for generating, sending, receiving, storing, or otherwise processing electronic data messages or electronic documents and includes the computer system or other similar devices by or which data are recorded or stored and any procedure related to the recording or storage of electronic data, messages, or electronic documents. Penalty next higher in degree sa gender-based sexual harassment in the workplace and educational or training institutions. Administrative penalties as provided for by the Employers Committee on Decorum and Investigation and without prejudice to the other applicable criminal violations and penalties. Failure of the employers or school heads to implement their duties under the Safe Space Act, including setting of administrative penalties to violations of gender-based sexual harassment in the workplace. fine of not less than 5,000 pesos nor more than 10,000 pesos. Yun po ang Bastos Law, mga kausapan.
Ingat po tayo mga kausapan sa ating mga binibitawang pananalita, sa ating mga kilos, para di tayo makasuhan ng violation ng Bastos Law. Till next Friday, itong Usapang Batas with Attorney I!